Welcome back, guys, to another Q&A. We do this every Thursday for those of you guys that are new to the channel. We've been doing this for about 7 weeks straight or so. So if you guys have any questions for the next week's Q&A, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, comment, let me know everything you guys thought about this video, and let's get into this. So this time I put them in like a random generator, you know, and we're only going to do 19. So I'm just doing this randomly. What do you think it would take to convince Tony Ferguson to retire in the sport of MMA? So obviously Tony Ferguson has been in the sport for a long time, has hit the highest of highs, but recently it's been on a low, right? I mean, he's lost about 5 fights in a row. He's lost to Nate Diaz, who Nate Diaz isn't really that top level of a fighter, so it really tells you where he's at. And it looks like he might fight Conor McGregor next. I think it would probably take similar to what it takes any of these fighters, you know, family members coming in. You know, that's why Frankie Edgar retired, was for his family. He didn't want his family to see him get knocked out like that, so he retired from the sport before he got any serious damage. But honestly, Tony Ferguson in his last few fights has taken a lot of damage. That Justin Gaethje fight took a lot of damage. Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush fights, he didn't really take too much damage, but then he got obviously knocked out cold by Michael Chandler. Then he got pretty boxed up by Nate Diaz. And if he fights Conor McGregor, I think it's going to be worse. I think Conor McGregor will put him away pretty early. We've seen Tony be there to get tagged, and he looked like he was getting rocked by Nate Diaz, so I can only assume that Conor would probably be able to put him away. I just think it's going to take either him to get cut from the UFC, which it doesn't look like he'll probably get cut anytime soon because he's still a fan favorite, or for him to have a serious health scare that maybe him or his family decide, hey, like, let's slow this down and let's stop doing this sport. All right, next question. When do you think Logan Paul will be fighting? Obviously, this is about the UFC. I made a video talking about if Logan Paul might fight in the UFC, which obviously it turned out to be just a prime announcement. And this is still something that I still think is open. You know, I think Dana White would probably sign Logan, seeing that they have an already good relationship, maybe for like a 1 or 2 fight deal. But that's if Logan wants it. I'm not really sure if he's going to fight in the UFC. I think there might be a lot of roadblocks, but as of right now, I have honestly no clue. Next question. Build your own dream card, include venue, prelims, and main card. Honestly, that question's really in depth and honestly would make for a really good video. So I think I'll make a separate video sometime next week about that very question. So I'm going to skip over that and save that for another video. All right, next question. Who is the best defensive fighter in UFC in your opinion? Dustin Poirier, in my opinion, has underrated defense. Like I said, I think he's one of the best boxers. In my opinion, the best boxer in the UFC. So I'd probably say Dustin Poirier right now. Next question. Can I get your prediction for the fights this week? Obviously, Derek Lewis, Sergey Spivak going at it. I'm going to give you my prediction right here, right now on the main event. And a video will probably come out later this week about my full breakdown. But to be honest, I don't know too much about Sergey. Like, I haven't gone in depth into like film analysis. Of course, I've seen him fight before, but I really want to take into account him fighting Derek Lewis and see if there's any weaknesses there. So I'm going to say right now, honestly, I have faith in Derek Lewis. I'm going to just pick Derek Lewis blindly, but I'm going to do a film analysis before I come out with the breakdown video deciding. Next question. If Conor versus Dustin happens, who you got winning? I mean, honestly, it's so tough. It depends. Honestly, I think if it stands in the feet, I think Conor has a good chance of winning. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, you're crazy, this and that. I think if Conor maintains distance and really works on the distance management, I think he'll do well. You saw him do well against Dustin Poirier at range with boxing combinations. And I think in the pocket, Poirier has an extremely good advantage. Like I said, his defense, his head movement is very underrated. So I think if Conor stays on the outside, kicks the legs, mixes up kicks to the body, and throws like long rangy shots, I think he could actually maybe win the stand-up. But if they're grappling, you know, I think Poirier will probably once again take down McGregor. But I don't know. I have faith in McGregor. I don't know. It's a little tough. I think Conor made the mistake last time going for the guillotine. I didn't really see how his takedown defense improved before the fight. I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to say Dustin, but I think let's hold our horses there. Like I said, I don't know how the leg break will affect Conor, but I think if Conor manages the distance, I think he does pretty well. All right, next question. What would you think of a matchup between Giga Chigadze versus Bryce Mitchell? Obviously, we have a high-level striker in Giga Chigadze and a high-level grappler like Bryce Mitchell. Honestly, I see Bryce winning. I think Bryce will back him up and get him afraid of the takedown, eventually back him up to the cage, take him down, and I think maybe win a decision. Maybe he submits him. I mean, Calvin Kattar was able to take him down, so I think he will too. Next question. Where does Mighty Mouse stack up in your all-time pound-for-pound list? For me, it's honestly top 3 with Khabib and Jon Jones. So I made a video, and I don't know if it'll come out. I think I'm going to save it for a rainy day, but I made a tier list video talking about the greatest of all time. If you guys want to see that, comment in the comment section below. But Demetrius Johnson in my top 5 is probably number 4. I think, though, DJ gets extremely underrated because the guy is still killing it to this day. He's a champion at 1. Like, the guy is still killing it to this day. People talk about Anderson doing well in a boxing match. I mean, we're talking about Demetrius Johnson defending his title, winning titles. Obviously lost last year, but avenged the loss, came back, and is now going to be fighting, I think, in May. Severely underrated, and I think it's because the UFC doesn't really promote him too much because obviously he's doing his thing at 1 now, so why would they promote him? Because it doesn't really help them. But I think that's one of the reasons he's disrespected, but he had so many title defensive. Next question. What's your opinion on shifting the weight classes to 165 to 175, then removing 170? Obviously, yeah, so that would make for an extra weight class. You'd have, instead of a 15-pound jump, you'd have a 10-pound pound jump, which would help a lot of fighters. I think a lot of fighters, when you're talking like Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, I think a lot of those fighters would get to that 165 division, and maybe someone like a Colby Covington would come down and meet at 165. So I don't necessarily mind that idea. There is a big jump between 155 and 170, and then 185, and then a massive jump to 205. So I get the frustration there, but I will say that a lot of weight classes does kind of destroy the hype, in my opinion. Like, there's so much weight classes, like in boxing, it's like there's like fucking like 19 weight classes in boxing. It's hard to keep track of all of them. That makes it simple, at least for the consumer, but I would understand, yeah, for the fighters, totally. I think there should be an extra weight class. I don't know what it is. I think they should definitely at least squeeze another one in, whether they move 205, whether it's even 195, I don't mind. I just think that there should be at least another one to stretch them out a little more evenly. All right, next question. Top 3 dream fights in any division, top 3 what ifs in the lightweight division. I'm gonna give you one for each. So my dream fight would probably be Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. That's a fight that I'm a little bummed that we never got to see. Actually, no, the biggest dream fight would be Prime GSP versus Prime Anderson Silva. That fight should have happened, and that would have been a crazy fight. I got George St. Pierre, in my opinion. But greatest what if in the lightweight division is obviously if Tony Ferguson and Khabib fought, but to be honest, I think we all know how that went. I think Khabib would have won that fight pretty easily. What is your favorite UFC card of all time? UFC 217, Michael Bisping versus George St. Pierre, Jorge Masvidal versus Stephen Thompson too. The card was absolutely stacked. 217 was an amazing card. With that, or maybe either UFC 205, the one with McGregor versus Alvarez. All right, if Jon Jones was shrunk down to Demetrius Johnson's size, who do you think is winning? As much as, I respect Demetrius Johnson, and I said that a lot of people sleep on him, I will say that I think Jon Jones wins the matchup. In my opinion, Jon Jones is the greatest of all time, the greatest to ever do it. I think, yeah, he beats Demetrius Johnson. Who had a worse decline, Reyes or Ferguson? I'm gonna go Dominic Reyes, simply because, look, Tony Ferguson is a sad decline, yes, but let's be honest, Dominic Reyes runs into a jab and he gets knocked out. Like, the guy's career is forever altered, and I don't know if it was because of the Jan Blachowicz fight, I don't know what it was, but his career was altered. Literally, I don't know if he's ever going to win another fight again. Like, at least Tony Ferguson, maybe you give him like a scrub, maybe you give him a guy like Paddy Pimblett, maybe he gets the win. Another guy like Jared Gordon, he gets the win, something like that, but I legitimately don't know who Dominic Reyes could beat. I mean, like, let's be real. We should see Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker, the battle of the chins, or lack thereof. Who are the gatekeepers for all weight classes in the UFC? So I think obviously the most notable gatekeepers are probably like Max Holloway, Colby Covington, Robert Whittaker. And for heavyweight, the gatekeeper really seems to be Curtis Blades. Look, I honestly think Curtis Blades deserves a title shot if he beats Sergey Pavlovich. I hear that fight's being made, so we'll see. Who do you think they'll put Logan Paul against? So obviously, look, Logan Paul, we already explained this, wasn't signed in the UFC, but I think that they would have put him against, like I said in my video, a guy that's on the come up, maybe a RoboCop, maybe a Bo Nickel, something of that sort, and really promote them using Logan Paul's name. But if Logan signs like a 5-fight deal or something like that, and they really want to cash him, I think they put him against a guy like Darren Till or something like that, maybe a guy that's kind of on a losing streak. Not saying that Logan Paul could beat Darren Till, but I'm just saying like something that'll increase the pay-per-views, that they don't really care if Logan wins or loses. What's your personal criteria for the pound for pound list? Some go by title fences or wins or weight classes, etc. Right, so for pound, in general, for the greatest of all time, I usually go by a few things, like obviously title defenses. I also go by finishes. I know a lot of people don't go by finishes. That's why I think, in my opinion, like George St. Pierre is number 3. It's just because he did have a lot of boring performances where he was, yes, very dominant. But when you look at a guy like Anderson Silva, who was also dominant, you also saw him get finishes. The front kick knockout of Vitor Belfort, he finished Chael Sonnen. And especially, too, you got to compare resume. That's also an important factor. I don't really necessarily judge it on the way that, like, if everybody was the same weight, who would win? I don't really do that because, like, in my opinion, like I said, George St. Pierre, I think, beats Anderson Silva, but I would actually rank Anderson Silva a little higher. But honestly, like, everybody has so much different criteria. It's really up to you. All right, which prospects outside the top 10 do you think have the best chance of becoming a champion someday? I mean, Bo Nickel is a pretty popular prospect, but I will say I think that people are overhyping him. Like, let's see him win a UFC fight first before we have all this hype behind him. But a guy that I think that a lot of people should be aware of is Jailton Almeida. I mean, the guy is a savage. We've seen him destroy his last 4 opponents. I think that guy has a really good future at heavyweight or light heavyweight. What would you think about a fighters union or collective bargaining for healthcare? Well, honestly, I would hate it. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, like, no, this is something that is actually really serious and something that the UFC should at least do, invest in, because I guarantee you there's a lot of fighters that are like, hey man, I don't want to get this checked out. I don't want to pay for this, especially the ones that are making 12K and 12K. Like I said, honestly, the UFC pay, I don't have as much of a problem with as a lot of people do, right? But if they were paying for healthcare, or if they were letting them use sponsors, honestly, I would be totally fine with the pay. But the reason I'm not is because they don't let them do those other things or give them those other things too, right? It's It's unfair to expect a guy making 12K and 12K pay his coaches, his taxes, his healthcare, his bill, like on all of that. But yeah, I think like at least the UFC should offer that. Final question: could you see a somewhat realistic path to the title for the following fighters? Wonderboy, Movsar Evloev, and Darren Till. All right, here's the most realistic path to Stephen Thompson. I took a bit to think about this. All right, Masvidal beats Burns. Masvidal fights Leon. Obviously Leon would have had to beat Kamaru for the third time. So we get Leon versus Masvidal. But then I don't know, bro. Then Stephen Thompson would have to fight someone. I don't know who he would fight that. I don't know. I really don't see a path for him. Movsar Evloev, I don't think he has that difficult. He's already undefeated. A little bit of hype around him. You know, I think that Bryce Mitchell fight would have gotten him a little more hype. I don't think he's that far away. I think maybe within the next year and a half, we're talking about him for the title, assuming he keeps winning. I think he's dealing with some sort of bad injury right now. And finally, Darren Till. Now, Darren Till, obviously, I think needs a lot of work. I think he should go to 170. Right? I mean, he already beat Thompson. Lost to Masvidal. I don't know. I mean, even at welterweight, who knows? I mean, he's getting taken down easily. Like, I think Gilbert Burns would have been able to submit him. I don't know. That one's also tough. So, honestly, maybe I just don't see a path. I think Movsar Evloev can easily become a champion, though. All right, guys, that's going to conclude my Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Share, like, subscribe, all that. Leave comments for next week, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.